Hi, my name is Lawrence. I'm the creator of Gradient. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all the controls and features. In short, Gradient is a synthesizer that's based on multi-samples of analog oscillators. These oscillators are then further shaped by Gradient's filters, modulation sources, and effects. Gradient runs in the free Kontakt player, so you don't need the full version of Kontakt. And because it's NKS compatible, it means that it integrates nicely with the S-series controllers and machine. You can load Gradient in Kontakt Player within the full version of Kontakt, Complete Kontrol software, or machine. Let's start with Kontakt. After installing Gradient via native access, you can find it within the Libraries tab here on the left. And because we've packaged everything nicely within a single instrument, you only see one NKI file. After loading it, you get the default preset. You can browse presets using the menu here on top. So within Factory, you can see the three included preset banks. So we have Blacklight, we have Reminiscent, and Spacetime. And within those, there are some categories for synth, pad, effects, or here like drums as well. So if we go to Spacetime, the more cinematic type of presets here, and we go to pads, we can just click on one and you can also flick through presets using these arrows here. Within Complete Kontrol, you can find Gradient using the All Instruments tab. You can go to Gradient here, and then you can browse presets using the banks. And here you can see again like the Blacklight, Reminiscent, Spacetime banks. And within the banks, you have access to these sub-banks. So again, we can go to the pad section here. Or you can use the tags here, where you can say I'm looking for some synth lead type of sound with a bright character. And then you can preview sounds like this. At the top here, you can see different options to enable scales or ARPs, and also like the controls that are accessible on the controller itself. Each preset comes with 2 pages of controls. And the first page provides controls that are often used, like the frequency or the resonance, some envelope settings like decay. So these are the same for all presets. It also helps you to give you some muscle memory when loading a preset. The second page contains controls that are relevant to that specific preset. course, you can also use a MIDI learn function to map controls to your MIDI controller of choice. Now let's have a closer look at the controls of gradient. Let's pick an Init preset here. So what I can do is I can go to the Init bank, and you can see we have two Init presets. So basically they're the same, but the difference is in the mapping of the controls. With all controls, you get all the controls of gradient available in the controller as well. So everything is mapped out nicely. With the quick start, you only get like 2 pages, but like with the most important controls to use. The interface consists of 4 main areas. So we have the oscillator section, we have the mixer section, the filter, and the shapers, and below we have some modulation and some effects as well. So for example, here we have envelope 1, 2, alpha 1, 2, some effects, and some keyboard settings. Let's start with the oscillator section. We have here 3 different tabs. So we have oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and the noise oscillator. At the heart of gradient is the wave knob. This contains all the multi-sampled analog waveforms, and you can select them instantly without loading times. And this is really important for the workflow because it works so fast and so easy to find the sound and to shape the sound you want. So let's go through them quickly. So I love that you can change up the sound so quickly with just one knob. And in total, there were 83 waves. So you can see they're sorted from sines to saws to pulse width modulation, and then some more adventurous ones like FM and ring modulation type of sounds. Also notice that some of the waves have this stereo icon here. So some of them are stereo oscillators and some are mono oscillators. If you want to go directly to a specific one, you can also click on the name and you get the drop-down list to go directly to the wave you are looking for. Now let's have a look at the phase reset. So basically, under the hood, we simulate that the oscillators are free running. That means that every time when you hit a key, the phase of the waveform is different. And if we enable phase reset, you enforce basically the oscillator to always start at the same position when the key is pressed. So it's a subtle effect, but it gives you a slightly punchier and more consistent sound, which can be useful when you're designing bass and percussion sounds. Then moving over to the contour control, and it's basically a simple dedicated volume envelope for oscillator 1. If we turn it to the right, phase in. If we turn it to the left, it will fade out quickly. Moving over to oscillator 2, we see some similar controls here. So again, we have the wave knob and we have the phase reset knob. So the waves are the same as within oscillator 1. Specific to oscillator 2 are the tune and the fine tune controls. Let's turn up oscillator 2. Let's bake like a BWM with the tune. We can tune oscillator 2 in semitones. And with fine tune, we can detune oscillator 2. Moving over to the noise oscillator, we have 21 different noise sources. Let's turn the oscillators down for a moment and move up the noise source. The LPF bypass stands for low pass filter bypass. If we turn down the filter for a moment, the noise gets filtered, but if we click this, we'll just bypass the filter. Similar to oscillator 1, the noise oscillator also has a contour control. And this can be useful, for example, to create a short burst of noise at the start of a sound. Now let's have a look at the mixer section here. So bring up the level of oscillator 1 and 2 again. Here we have volume control for oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and the noise oscillator. And with these buttons, you can enable or disable the oscillators. And if you don't use an oscillator, it's good practice to disable it, as it will save you some CPU power. And output is just the main output volume. Then on the pan tab, you can pan oscillator 1 and 2. You can create some nice white stereo image this way. And below we have some panning modes. Putting these back in the middle. We have 3 different pan modes. We have alt, meaning alternate, keyboard tracking, and on these random. And then the pan amount determines the amount of panning applied. So let's try them out. Alternate means, let's do it extreme for now. Alternate means that the sound alternates between the left and right every time I press a key. It can be nice to open up chord sounds or when using an arpeggiator to get some nice movement in the stereo field. Keyboard tracking means that lower notes are panned more to the left and higher notes are panned more to the right. And then random just picks a random position in the stereo field every time a key is pressed. Let's back off for now. In the filters section, you can find the low pass filter. We have the main frequency control. Let's put the noise as well through the filter. And peak is the resonance control. Then we have envelope 1 amount. Basically, it controls how much envelope 1 affects the cutoff frequency. Maybe we can change the shape of envelope 1. Make it a bit more plucky, maybe. Or negative. And then key track controls the amount of key tracking applied. So this means that lower notes have a lower cutoff frequency and higher notes have a higher cutoff frequency. And then on top here we have this little button stating 12 or 24. And 12 refers to filter type. It's a 12 dB per octave filter. If we click it, we can change it to a 24 dB per octave filter. You can hear that the 24 sounds a bit rounder, warmer. And the 12 sounds a bit brighter, a bit edgier. Then we have the EQ section. So we find here a high pass filter. And here is a high shelf EQ, so we can boost the high frequencies. Open up the filter a bit. And then below we have the mid-frequency and mid-gain, which is basically a bell-shaped EQ band. So with this one, we can set the frequency of the EQ band. And then with the gain, we can boost it to the right and cut it to the left. In the Shape tab, we can find 4 different types of effects. And drive is a subtle overdrive that is placed after the filters. If we open up the resonance a bit. And this drive is applied to each note separately. Which makes it sound more open compared to applying an overdrive at the end of the chain. It's a bit much for now. Grid is a nice effect. It's actually kind of a hidden noise source that modulates the low pass filter. And depending on the peak and frequency, the character is a bit different. Then we have Crush, and that's a sample rate reducer. And it's placed before filters, so you can use the filters to shave off some of the harsh frequencies if you wish. Finally, we have tape. We can enable tape with the button here. And tape is a tape style saturation that is applied at the end of the signal chain. That means that the amount of saturation changes based on the volume of the patch or the number of voices. So it can really break up. And this gives some nice tonal variation to a patch. So this is of course a bit too much, but you get the idea. Let's move over to the lower section. So here we have 2 envelopes, 2 LFOs, the effects, and some keyboard controls. Let's start with envelope 1. By default, envelope 1 is tied to the low pass filter, as we saw earlier when we had a look at the envelope 1 amount. And then here you have the familiar attack, decay, sustain, release. And then on the right-hand side, we have some destinations specifically for envelope 1. We have pitch, we have drive, and high pass. So for example, and then we can also apply negative amounts. Envelope 2 is by default tied to the volume. By increasing the attack, we get a nice fade in. And additionally, you can use it to modulate the pitch of all the oscillators, of oscillator 1 only or oscillator 2 only. And you can also use it to modulate the low pass filter. So you could, for example, combine envelope 1 and 2 for more complex modulation shapes, or free up envelope 1 for different duties. And then here at the bottom we have the gate mode. And with gate mode enabled, the volume is not controlled anymore by envelope 2. If we engage it, the volume is high as long as the key is pressed. The release control is still applied though, so if we enable it, then let's move to LFO 1. The rate sets the speed of the LFO, and let's apply it to something, let's say the pitch here. And with the free or sing button, you can sing the LFO rate to your host tempo. Now we have 3 different waves, so we have the triangle, the ramp, and the pulse. Then we have the stable and unstable button here. And that introduces some randomness to the shape of the LFO, so it becomes a bit more organic. It's a subtle effect, but it works. With retrig enabled, the LFO is re-triggered every time a key is pressed. And you also get then a delay control, so it basically, let's increase the pitch for a moment. Fades in the intensity of the LFO. And on the right-hand side, you can see the destinations of LFO 1. We have pitch, we have the low pass frequency, we have the panning, and for panning, we have 3 different types of destinations. It can be applied to all the oscillators, only to oscillator 2, or to 1 and 2, but in opposite direction. Meaning that if oscillator 1 is on the left, oscillator 2 is on the right, and vice versa. And then LFO 2 is the same as LFO 1, just has some different destinations. In the effects section, you find the delay and the reverb effect. We can enable them by clicking the button here. And you can see we have a time control, feedback for the delay, and the delay amount. The delay time can be synced to the tempo or not, what we prefer. And below that, we can also set the delay type, so between stereo or ping pong. Now we have two different types of flavors of delay. So we have the BBD, so it's more like analog style, or tape for a more tape style delay. Sounds a bit brighter. And then on the right, we have the reverb with just two controls, size and the amount. It can add some really nice atmosphere to the sound. Just playing around a little bit. And then finally, we have some keyboard related settings. The pitch bend control sets the pitch bend range in semitones. And then the second knob here is the mod wheel to frequency amount. So how much, if we turn the mod wheel, it will open up the frequency. With the mod wheel to LFO1 switch, the mod wheel controls the intensity of LFO1. So if we enable this, if we increase for now the pitch amount on LFO1, as soon as we turn up the mod wheel, controls the amount actually up until the maximum set. And then the velocity to level knob controls the velocity sensitivity, and the monophonic switch makes gradient monophonic. So this can be useful, for example, for drums and for bass patches. That was all for this video. Thank you for watching and hope you have fun with Gradient.